All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the Million Dollar Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with James Bond. James, welcome to the show. So awesome to have you.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you and I got to speak earlier, and I got to give a shout out to Andrew Ailman and podcastguest.com again, because I have been on their list for a while. I get a couple of emails from them every week, and pretty much every week I find, maybe not, maybe I don't find a guest every week, but almost every week I find one guest at least that I just like. I see what they're all about through his platform, and I end up reaching out, and we make a connection, kind of like you and I did. We have a conversation. I'm like, absolutely, we need to do this. So I want to give a shout out to those guys, because I am really grateful and appreciative of them and the work that they do in helping not only people like me find great guests to interview, but also, they help podcast guests. So they're helping guests as well as hosts, which is really awesome. And so, so
We
that
had such a great talk, and we had such a great talk. We were actually scheduled to do it previously, but we had such a great talk, and it went on forever, because you and I are both like experts in marketing in different areas and the interaction of people and stuff like that, that we actually had to reschedule this because we were having too much fun interacting.
I mean, it was just really great getting to know each other. And I'm like, you know what? If it's cool with you, James, I just want to keep having this conversation. We'll do the podcast interview another time. And so here we are now for the podcast interview. And which is, I mean, such a testament to the power of relationships, and I have long said that as entrepreneurs, relationships are the most valuable asset we possess. Everything else stems from that. And the way that you and I connected, and because you and I both place such a high value on relationships, we are more in the moment of like, we want to create those valuable relationships for no other purpose than doing that. And as a result, like you said, we're like, you know what, we'll just do the podcast interview later. Let's keep having this conversation, because we both liked the way that was going, and we really got to know each other a little bit. And now I'm even more excited to do this interview. And what I'd like to do is just kind of start off by turning over to you, James, to share a little bit about what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the impact you're making in this world. And we'll start there, James.
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Montreal. I ran an advertising agency in Montreal. I worked my way up and then won major clients like Kraft Foods, Timex, Avon, Abbott Laboratories, Seagram's, their world headquarters is in Montreal. But so I originally had an advertising agency in Montreal. Eventually we moved to California, and I built one of California's leading behavioral management firms. Actually, people ask me, like, how long have you been in California? And I think we have a son and 3 daughters, and our middle daughter, we gave her the initials LA, Lauren Asia, AJA. So that we'd remember. I go, how old's Lauren? Okay, Lauren's like 36. Good, we've been here for 36 years. So I can remember that. In fact, she said, we gave her the middle name Asia, AJA. And so she asked me 2 years ago, like, why did you name me Asia? It's such a cool name. And I said, it's because of the Steely Dan album, Asia, that we really loved. And they had a song, they have a song, Asia, that's really awesome. Then she calls me back and she says, I just listened to it. They're horrible. That's what you named me after. I'm like, sorry. We love Steely Dan. And she actually, I think it's growing on her, but, you have to be careful as a parent. It's like, naming your child. But when I was in Montreal, I had built relationships with many, very influential people because of the work that we did. I have a logical background, very technical background, and I love logic, and it turns out to be a disadvantage when it comes to persuasion. And I want to talk about that because that's what's really blown my mind. So we had an opportunity to do the anti-drug campaign in America.
Okay.
And they loved our approach. We had logical reasons why you shouldn't do drugs. And then we saw the campaign that beat us and deserved to beat us And so two things happened. Here's the campaign. The campaign was a guy holding an egg over a sizzling frying pan. You could hear the sizzling, and he says, "This is your brain holding the egg," and then he cracks the shell and drops the egg into the sizzling frying pan. The sizzling sound was very important to building emotion as well, by the way. He said, "This is your brain on drugs," as you see the egg sizzling in the frying pan. Any questions? And when I saw that, this is your brain on drugs. Any questions? When I saw that campaign, it blew my mind for two reasons. One is it was far better than anything we had created. It was very impressive. It was a gazillion times more powerful. But the second thing was it was emotional selling. And I know logical selling, not emotional selling. And it scared me because I went like, I'm in advertising. How can I be in advertising or marketing or even life and not understand emotional selling? And it scared me. I had sleepless nights over it because it was like, so I keep thinking of that. What a fabulous, how did they come up with such an idea? So what I did was I recognized school doesn't teach us emotional selling. They teach us logic and math and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I went to the library and it was like superficial things, but nothing really talked about emotional selling. So I said, okay, maybe I can figure this out myself. What I did was I took a box and I called it my passion box. And on a 3x5 card, I wrote, "Your brain on drugs." So I'd remember the ad. And I put the 3x5 card in the box. And I said, I'm not going to analyze them yet because I don't understand how emotional selling works. But whenever I see an incredible ad that uses emotional selling, or whenever I hear somebody say something profound that I don't understand, like I grew up with President John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. and stuff like that. And Kennedy would say, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." And I went like, wow, that's powerful. I didn't know back then. Now I know it's called chiasmus, the thing that he used, and I'll talk about that. But it was like, this is profound what he said. I don't understand why it works, but there's something about how it works that's really profound. So I wrote that down, ask not what your country can do for you on a 3x5 card, put it in my passion box. My wife hated going to doctor's offices with me because I'd be going through a magazine. I go, "Oh, look at this ad." She said, "Do not tear it out of the magazine." "No, I have to put it in my passion box." So she would sit as far away from me as possible. I do not know that guy, but I tear the magazine, the ad out. But putting them in the passion box is really powerful for me. I'd look at them sometimes, but I'd recognize still these are powerful. I don't understand how to create this though, okay? So later on, after we moved to California, I met John Gray. And John Gray wrote a book called Men, Women, and Relationships. Fabulous, one of the best relationship books ever written. But he only sold a few thousand copies, actually 20,000 copies. And he was frustrated because he knew it was a fabulous book. When people read it, he got fabulous reviews. They said, "This is like incredible." In fact, John Gray told me, "Never tell people you're an expert." He says, "I go home and my wife proves that I am not an expert in relationships." Tell them you're a specialist. So I always say I'm a specialist, okay? But John Gray said, I was at a seminar where I was trying to promote the book, and I said something, and all the women in the audience started laughing hysterically, and all the men looked at the women going like, "What was so funny about what he just said?" And so they recognized as he started talking about, well, you could see even by the audience that some things women laugh at and they get and men don't get, and some things men laugh at that women don't laugh at. And of course, there are things that we all laugh at, but there's a big difference between men and women. And so somebody said, "It's almost like men are from a different planet." Like, "What planet do you think men are from?" And he started laughing and he said, "I guess men are from Mars." And the whole audience started laughing. And so we're actually not from Mars, ladies out there. I don't think we are anyway. Are we from a different planet? We might be. But when he got home, he thought, okay, if men are from Mars, where are women from? I guess women are from Venus. Venus is the god of love. Mm-hmm. And then he got this crazy idea. It's like, what happens if I change the title of my book to "Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus"? Okay. And I'll put references to Men Are From Mars. I'll keep the same book, but I'll put references to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus throughout the book. So you'll recognize it wasn't just a trick, What do you think happened? He went from almost overnight, he sold 500,000 copies, then 1 million, then 2 million. You and I know Steve Harrison, right? Yeah. In my book, Steve Harrison, who helps promote people, including John Gray, I put in my book that he sold 10 million copies. He said, "No, he didn't. He sold 50 million copies. Sorry, John Gray sold 50 million copies. 50 million. I mean, how many people live in America? That's amazing. But he went from 20,000 copies to 50 million copies just because he changed the title of his book, and a little bit of references to it. And it's like, it blew my mind. And when I got home, I was going to put, his book inside my passion box. And I said, no, this is too profound, and I've got statistics and all that stuff about how much it's grown just because of the change. And so I said, let me dump the passion box onto my bedspread, onto my bed. It was a nice big surface. And let me see if I can catalog them into different groups of why they are emotional selling. Okay. And so we're not really from a different planet. Again, I hope not. We might be, but it's a metaphor or analogy. Okay. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I remember being in the store and looking at books and going like, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. What? Huh, and I picked it up. By the way, you want to get somebody to buy your book, the first thing they have to do is pick it up, right? Unless it's on Amazon, then they have to click on it, okay? So you want to understand what the step is. But so that's an analogy or a metaphor. And I went, okay, what else are there other analogies and metaphors? And I went, oh, wait a second. The TV show Shark Tank, that's not a tank full of sharks. Nope. It might feel like it if you're on the show. Don't attack me, But it's a metaphor. And if it was called the Investors Group, you think it would be as successful as Shark Tank? I don't think so. There's something cool about having a metaphor like that. Mm-hmm. On a History Channel, I saw a show on Dreyer's ice cream, and it was they invented Rocky Road. They actually stole the name from somebody else, but that's a whole other story. But they started during the Great Depression, and during the Great Depression, there was basically 3 types of ice cream. Chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. There's 3 types of ice cream. So they decided, let's mix things together. Let's take chocolate ice cream, put nuts in it, and put marshmallows in it. And what do we call it? Then they came up with the name Rocky Road. And they thought that would really be a fun name. Well, Rocky Road became a monster of success almost overnight. And they were struggling until they came up with the name Rocky Road. So how did they come up with the name? What does Rocky Road have? It has 3 brain glue tools that I call brain glue, which sticks to the brain like glue, okay? First one is a metaphor, Rocky Road, okay? It's not really raw. You don't open it and you get rocks inside it, okay? The second thing is it uses alliteration or the repetition of sounds, Rocky Road, okay? Then I started investigating what other successful products use alliteration. I started to realize, Coca-Cola, Best Buy, PayPal, TikTok. You think it's a coincidence that TikTok uses alliteration or a repetition of sounds? What if you think it would be as successful if they called it the Chinese social media platform? I don't think so. In fact, if we look at metaphors, alliteration, it's amazing how many other things use metaphors, like movies, Beauty and the Beast, The Pink Panther, King Kong, Dr. Dolittle, famous celebrities, Chevy Chase, Marilyn Monroe, Marilyn Manson, Jesse Jackson. How about famous terms? Cape Cod, baby boomers, which I'm a baby boomer, you might too. Bed bugs, cash cow, hip hop, March Madness, terrible twos, pickleball. They're just, it's amazing. How about phrases? Cool as a cucumber. Well, how cool is a cucumber? But there's something about saying cool as a cucumber that sticks in the brain. Cream of the crop. Dead as a doornail. How dead is a doornail? I want to know that. But just when you say that, it just sticks. Trick or treat. It sticks to the brain. And I went like alliteration. I never even noticed. I recognize these phrases are powerful. I recognize these product names are powerful. This woman, I was on and I was talking to these women, and this woman says, "You're talking about all these men products. How about Lululemon?" I said, "Oh, sorry, that's a good one to add." Lululemon is massively successful, but it uses alliteration, and so Rocky Road uses alliteration, and that's a powerful tool. And okay, that's interesting. The third powerful tool that Rocky Road uses is humor, and humor is a powerful tool as well. If you can make people laugh, there's a good chance you could actually make them buy. And because it triggers oxytocin in the brain, which actually makes people much more receptive to saying yes to your ideas and buying your products. A lot of people don't know that. And so they use humor this way. Rocky Road was introduced during the Great Depression. And the Great Depression had a nickname, and it was called Rocky Road. We're all on a rocky road. And so their concept was, since we're all on a rocky road anyway, we might as well have Rocky Road ice cream. Which is kind of funny, but it's just, when you take those three elements and you put them together, it feels subtle. This is the thing that blew my mind. It feels subtle, but it's not, because, you know, from men, women, and relationships to men are from Mars, women are from Venus, you went from 20,000 to 50 million, you know? I mean, like, at $1 a book, that's not bad.
No.
But it made me realize that, like, these are actual tools. I came up with 14 core tools out of all the stuff that was on my passion box. And I've been doing this for a long time, for 35 years. You know, that was about, 10 years ago that I actually recognized the whole thing with John Gray and all that stuff, where I finally put it together. But I started recognizing things like O.J. Simpson's trial. What did he say? If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Most attorneys would say, well, if the glove doesn't fit my client, because it's an evidence piece, if the glove doesn't fit my client, then you have to let my client go. But Johnny Cochran recognized the power of rhyme. And he said, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. I remember two of the people from the women from the jury were sitting there, and one of them is explaining this while the other one's nodding her head. And the interviewer, the reviewer, the journalist asked, with so much evidence against OJ, why did you let him go? And she said, we knew if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. The glove didn't fit. We had to acquit. And it's like poetry, like, wow. And I have this, friend who's one of the top 50 attorneys in the country. And he says, yeah, I use poetry all the time, but I'm not going to tell who he is. Okay. He says, there are two tools I use: poetry, and I use humor. And you use humor because it works this way. If I can make the jury laugh, there's a better chance that they're going to want me to be successful. Okay. If I can make the judge laugh, there's a better chance that he will, be on my side. And it's like just one of those things that actually works, because it triggers in the brain. Don't we like somebody who makes us laugh? So if I'm working and trying to defend my client, but I can get you guys to laugh while I'm explaining it, then it's like, whoa, hold on a second. I've got some funny jokes so as I'm going through Brain Glue and learning the tools of Brain Glue and educating others, I start recognizing that humor, comedians use Brain Glue type tools all the time. Here's chiasmus, which I'll explain in a second, but chiasmus is, well, let me actually tell you what chiasmus is, so then I can tell you the jokes, okay?
Okay.
Chiasmus is, let me get some examples of it. So where rhyme is A-B-A-B, it rhymes, okay? Chiasmus is A-B-B-A, it's a flip, okay? And I'll give you some examples. Winners never quit, and quitters never win, okay? When the going gets tough, the tough get going, okay? And we know that. And it fits. I saw this one: eat to live, don't live to eat. It's something I need to learn, by the way, but it's a whole other story. Einstein said, when nothing goes right, go left, which I thought was really funny. And he said, remember to forget. I heard this guy say, remember to forget. It's like, it's a flip. President John F. Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Okay. He also said, mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind. Now these stick in the brain. Malcolm X, a civil rights activist, Malcolm X said, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock, the rock landed on us. Okay, now just think if we said, hey, we have a hard time, being black in America, or being black anywhere. Do you understand how hard it is? It would go in one or out the other. We've heard it a lot and all that stuff. But by saying, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock, the rock landed on us, it resonates. And it's also easy to remember, so we can tell other people, hey, what Malcolm X said, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock, the rock landed on us. That's really powerful. He also said, when you stand for nothing, you fall for anything. You and I love Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar said, we need a daily, motivational speaker. He said, we need a daily checkup from the neck up to avoid stinking thinking that leads to hardening of the attitudes. Zig Ziglar loved chiasmus and rhyme and all that stuff, and alliteration, repetition of sounds. So here's comedians who used it. Here's one. It's better to wake up and pee than to pee and wake up.
I got to agree with that too, James.
me too. Yeah. After you pass a certain age, boy, you can relate to that one. Einstein said, you can't fix yourself by breaking someone else, which I thought was really powerful. Mae West, who was really awesome. She was like in the early days of the movie industry. She discovered like some famous actors and stuff like that. She was really amazing. So she has some great lines. It's better to be looked over than overlooked. Okay. He said, women like a man with a past, but they prefer a man with a present. When women go wrong, men go right after them. And good girls go to heaven, bad girls go everywhere. I mean, I don't agree with that, ladies out there, but anyway. But it's just when you take these tools and you start to recognize that even comedians use them. This guy said, I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. It's like, okay. I mean, but it resonates. And when you hear it resonates, it's really powerful. And just by the way, so I'm talking about like marketing and books and stuff like that, and marketing products and things like that. And I can give you some examples. Like I have this company, a construction company, that they exploded. Once I implemented this, after 10 years, they reached 2 million, and they jumped to 10 million and then 32 million in sales just by changing how they describe what they were offering. And I'll tell you that in a second. But this mom asks me, which is always terrifying when a mom says, well, you're an expert in brain glue. Can you help me with my kid? It's like, what? Okay, sure. She says, my 14-year-old son has this question. I don't know how to answer it. He says, Mommy, why do we have to follow so many rules in life? Okay, so the first thing I said, let's come up with poetry first, or rhyme. So what rhymes with rules? Fools. So only fools don't follow rules. That's a line I can use, a tagline, okay? But let me go beyond this and come up with a metaphor. And so I came up with a metaphor. We both, bounced it off each other. And I sat down with her and her son, and I said, so you asked your mom, why do we have to follow so many rules in life, right? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, when you're thirsty, if you're really thirsty, you could always drink water out of the toilet. But why would you want to? Remember, only fools don't follow rules. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, that makes sense. When does a 14-year-old say anything makes sense? I want to know, okay? Please tell me. So I escaped before he asked me another question, by the way. But does it really make sense, or did I trigger things in the brain that, that make you feel like it makes sense? And so I'll give you two political comments, okay? One is, you can't hug a child with nuclear arms. I've heard a lot of people hear that and respond and go like, whoa, So does it really make sense? There's no logic to it. You're not hugging a child with nuclear arms, but you're hugging a child, which is emotional, with nuclear arms, which is also emotional, but a different type of emotion. Yeah. But you're taking these two pieces and putting them together. Now, I'm not against gun. I'm not for, anti-gun or anything else. I don't want to get into the politics of it. But I heard a comedian say this, which I thought fits this same category. And he said, the right to bear arms is almost as crazy as the right to arm bears. And I see people respond to it and they go, And so what are you going, It didn't make sense what he just said, but it sticks to the brain because it uses tools. So as I started learning brain glue, after I did the passion box on the bed and everything, I started understanding it. I have clients that I was working with from a marketing standpoint, a business growth standpoint. And I had this client that there were 3 guys who after 10 years had 2 million in sales, which is not bad. 2 million in sales for, 3 guys, make pretty good living. In 1 year, I took them to 10 million and 2 million, and they went to 32 million 2 years later. And here's how we did it. So I pulled out a whiteboard. It was really funny. These guys are old fashioned. I said, well, I need a whiteboard. So we'll get a whiteboard. And they said, by the way, when you're done with training us, we have 3 months training program. When you're done with training us, you can take the whiteboard with you because we don't use a whiteboard. After 1 week, I came in, the whiteboard was filled with words. I tortured them, by the way. I pulled out an eraser. No, don't erase it. Yeah, no, we didn't. This before cameras. Don't erase it. We got to write it down. I said, I thought you guys don't need whiteboards. Do not leave with that whiteboard. We need that whiteboard. They were telling me this, by the way. They said, it's amazing. I sit with their contractors, okay, in the construction industry. And we sit with contractors. And then we said, okay, who's going to do what? You're going to do this, you're going to do that, and everything else. And he said, this one guy said, I started writing it on the whiteboard. And an amazing thing happened. When I started writing on the whiteboard, the guy struggled to try to find a piece of paper and a pen so he could write it down. These guys would promise stuff all the time and never write it down. But once I started writing it on the whiteboard, they went, uh-oh, he's writing on the whiteboard. I better write it down. And they struggled. They said, I am never going to get our people to do stuff without writing on a whiteboard first, because it forces them to write it down. So I thought that was funny.
Wow. Wow.
But on a whiteboard, I said, let's make a shopping list of every single type of client you go after. These guys who build homes and manufacturing facilities and all kinds of stuff, small, tiny homes in the back of somebody's home and stuff like that, like sheds. They would build anything, groups of homes. And I said, let's make a shopping list of all the different types of clients you go after. And, it took a while. It took about like 45 minutes, almost an hour, to get them to think of, oh, wait, we forgot about this other one. Oh, wait, we forgot about this other one. And then I said, okay, now here's the game I want to play. I want you to pick a client a type of client out of this that you're going to go after, and you're going to only go after them and not go after anybody else. You're actually going to say no to everybody else. They said, we don't want to do that. I said, don't worry about it. It's a game. Okay. We're going to get you to go after a certain type of client that you think you could be really successful with. And so it took a while. And then they came up with fire restoration for insurance companies. I actually had to ask him, what is that? He said, well, it's, an insurance company that has a client that has a fire. If they have a fire in their home, there's two things you want to check. First is the frame okay? If the frame is damaged, you got to tear down the whole house, put up a new frame, okay? But if the frame isn't damaged, you got to set up the house, make sure it's not going to catch fire again and stuff like that. And so, yeah, we can go after fire restoration for insurance companies. We've done it for 2 insurance companies, a few projects, and we loved it. And we could actually, if we focused on just on that, we can actually specialize and find special ways and systems and processes to actually make it easier and better for the insurance companies. So I said, okay, fire restoration for insurance companies. Let's apply brain glue to it, because how are you going to explain this to your prospects? So the first word that comes up is fire, because it's a fire that their client had. And so I came up with this idea. Why don't you call yourself the fire extinguisher for insurance companies? Well, your website will be FireX, which, by the way, when you do a FireX, it should be fire, the letter X, and then fire EX. You have to remember people are going to misspell it all the time, okay? No matter what you tell them, you have to have multiple spellings. But I said, let's come up with, why don't you tell your clients or your prospects, we're the fire extinguisher for you guys. So every time you have a client that has a fire, call us, we're the fire extinguisher for you. We'll put out the fire, we'll fix it up and everything else. And that resonated so much with clients that they start having fun going to, hey, just think of us as a fire extinguisher. We're your fire extinguisher. And so and they would remember it, stuck to the brain, because, hey, I got to, Joe, we got the Johnson family's house just burned down. Oh, or had a fire. Okay, well, I got to call my fire extinguisher. And it resonated with the brain. And so how much? It took them 10 years to get to 2 million. In 1 year, it took them to 10. Wow. And by the way, they razzed me because they said, hey, Bond, it was supposed to be, our goal was 12 million. And I said, shut up. These guys bought each other the biggest BMW, each other as a present, once they passed 10 million, and then they went to 32 million 2 years later. But it's all because of this simple concept. You want to simplify in the brain. You want to make it easy for people to understand what you have. And then you want to offer something that's valuable, but there's lots of people offering stuff that's valuable. So you want to stand out from the crowd by offering something that's valuable. And they were not the only construction company that dealt with, fire restoration for insurance companies, but they stuck in the brain, and they went, every time somebody said, I got a fire we have to deal with, got my fire extinguisher, let me call these guys. Yeah. And it took off so much that they went from 2 to 10 million to 32 million. And that was an early one for me. That was my second client. The first one was a bank, so it was a whole other thing where I was focusing on behavioral management. But it was just like, I started going like, geez, that worked a lot better than even I thought it was going to work. Wow. Because I had this theory, but now I got to apply it with clients. And you and I both have, because we get clients that will learn things. We get to experiment on our clients. We'll do 80-20. The 80% of the stuff we will do because we know it works. And 20% is we'll experiment. We get to experiment with clients. And some things work and some things don't. But I went like, forget that 80-20. This has to be 80%. This is like blowing people's, exploding their income and revenue. And so it was really good.
That is awesome. And I'll tell you, what one thing that comes through loud and clear, James, is your enthusiasm and energy around this topic and the work that you get to do and the impact that you get to make in the world by helping companies by using this.
And helping moms. I help the mom. I mean, whoever thought?
Yeah. So, okay. So now that we've got some context set here, what I want to do is I'm gonna shift gears just a little bit, and I want to I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So, James, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And James, I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
So I want to give you 3 examples, if I may.
Okay.
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 I was just thinking of the third one. So the first one is Zig Ziglar.
Okay.
So when I started my advertising business, I was in business with one of my brothers, and he's a fabulous salesperson. And I didn't like sales. I was a technical person. Okay. And after we broke up, I love my brother dearly, but not in business. Okay. Let me say that. Family and business often doesn't fit. I suddenly found myself with a studio and clients, employees, and stuff like that. And I had to service them. I had to get enough clients, and I had to go out and get clients. And I was terrified of selling. And it's like, I don't want to be like a car salesman and all that stuff. And I met Zig Ziglar. We also attended his workshop early on. I mean, he's passed away, but he was fabulous. But he was saying how, everybody knows selling. You don't have to teach somebody how to sell. If you saw a movie that you love, then, you tell, oh, you've got to see, I saw this movie, Hidden Figures. I thought it was fabulous. With the 3 Black women who worked at NASA and actually worked their way up through all the prejudice and everything else, and suddenly became really famous at Hidden Figures. And it's like, oh, you have to see this movie. It's so great and everything else. Nobody had to teach me how to sell. He also said, kids are the best salespeople. Really? He said, yeah. He said, like, you're at a grocery store and your kid's holding a ball and say, hey, Dad, can I have this ball? No, please, no, please, no, please, no. Can I hold it? Okay, fine, hold it. Fine, okay. And there you are at the conveyor belt, and here's this ball moving out. You look at your son and go, oh, how much is the ball? Kids know how to sell. Can we go to Disneyland? They say as they're shaking their head. Can we go to whatever else? And so they understand, because we understand conceptually how to sell. And once I recognized that, and he talked to me about coming up with questions. He said, don't blab away all the time. Like, I would go into a client and I would have a portfolio. I drove my wife nuts because I always had to have more stuff in my portfolio because I don't have, bottles in my portfolio. I don't have kids in my portfolio, whatever else. And she go, just go and get clients, But I learned there were 5 questions that I came up with, actually 7, 5 first and then 2 more. And the 2 more are profound for your entire audience to remember. I would ask the questions, what do you sell? And I work with companies like, like a division of IBM. I would still say, what do you sell? Well, we're IBM. You don't know what we sell? No, I know. But what, in your words, what do you sell? To who? How is it used? What are you competing with? And why yours? And through those 5 questions, they would start uncovering stuff and revealing stuff with me that was a problem. And I say, hey, if I could solve that problem, would you give me the contract? And started learning it that way. Later, I learned with behavioral management, 3 power questions, past, present, future. And it works this way. So when we're offering advertising, we would ask a person, past, have you ever worked with an advertising agency before? Okay. And if they said yes or no, they said, no, we do it ourselves. Okay. Or yes, we have. What worked for you and what didn't work for you? Mm-hmm. Okay. And now they're explaining to you how to sell them because, oh, this was great, but this was terrible. We didn't have all the media we didn't know all the media we can have. So we only advertise this, on Facebook and nobody everywhere else or whatever else. Okay. That's past. Present is, so what are you doing now? Are you using an advertising agency? Or I have a sister who works with young kids. I said, how about your kid? Past. Has your kid been, great, doing well or not doing well in the past? What worked for you guys? What didn't work for you guys? Let me go back to the advertising because it applies to virtually any industry or anything you're trying to pitch. Okay. So that past is, have you worked with an agency before? What worked? What didn't work for you? Are you working with one right now, or are you doing it yourself? What's working for you? What's not working for you? Future. What's the ideal situation where you could actually have somebody doing stuff for you that would actually be giving you what you really want? And when you do the past, present, future, it opens the door. It basically gets you to them telling you how to sell them, which is really, really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So So Zig got me doing that and understanding the questions. And when I understood the questions, I suddenly went from feeling like a car salesman to feeling like a doctor. So as a doctor, and it's one of the things we all have to remember is sometimes you have to say no to a client. I can't help you with that. Okay. We have to understand what can we help them with and what can't we? And so, so Zig got me recognizing that by asking questions. So I'll give you Seagram's as an example. I went into Seagram's, the big, booze company.
Uh-huh.
And the guy that I was talking to, so he said, so I would do this. I would play this game. I say, so I'd like to show you my portfolio if it's okay. And I'd lean forward, and they would lean forward. Then I would say, but I'd like to ask you a few questions if that's okay first. And they would go, okay. And I'd lean back, and they would lean back. It was just a funny little dance I always played. And I would ask them the question. So in the olden days, I would show them all the stuff inside our portfolio, hoping something resonated. But with Seagram's, I started talking to him, and he started telling me, we spend a fortune, sometimes $100,000 or more on bottles, because bottle design is very important in creating a personality for the products we have, bottles and labels. And when he told me that, I said, so what's really important? And he said, is that people show the bottle and it looks, people recognize how incredible this bottle looks because we spent a fortune to make it. So then I went, oh, okay. And I remember I'd done work with a lighting manufacturer that made lamps, overhead chandeliers and stuff like that. And I said, well, we have lots of experience with glass and plastic and different types of textures because we've done it with this. And I showed him some of the things to see how we show the texture of it and everything else. And he went like, oh, wow, definitely. And that got us to win him with little effort because he basically told me what he wanted. And so Zig Ziglar got me on path to do that.
Wow.
The second one is recently. So my book is Brain Glue. Okay. It was actually originally called Sell More with a Right Brain Marketing Strategy. I tortured every one of my friends or everyone who read it because people would say I wanted to refer it to people, but I couldn't remember the damn name, and I made a mistake. This is a problem we have. I'm a logical person, so I fall back on logic. And so I wanted to a way to describe the book, you'll sell more with a right brain marketing strategy, And Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, that by the way sold 500 million books. How many people? 500 million. How many people live in the planet Earth? He sold 500. He sold 100 million Chicken Soup for the Soul books, and 400 million of the Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, Chicken Soup for the Cancer Survivor Soul, and everything else. A series of books. Yeah. He was actually telling me when he did the book, he wanted to come up with a name, like a metaphor. He wasn't thinking it was a metaphor. He hadn't read my book yet, obviously. But he said he wanted to come up with a name that was really powerful. And he woke up one morning, he went, "What? Everybody feels good with chicken soup. He is a healing process, because it has 101 motivational stories that will heal you, make you feel better about life." And so chicken soup is great. So he said he was telling me he was going to call it Chicken Soup for the Spirit. But the more he thought about it, he said, spirit doesn't sound right. And so he used alliteration. He didn't realize he was, but SOUP, SOUL, Chicken Soup for the Soul, sounds better than Chicken Soup for the Spirit. So he changed the name to Chicken Soup for the Soul. And the rest, as I say, is history, okay? Wow. Well, he was reading my book. He said, first he got mad at me, and I was like, sorry. He said, no, I started reading your damn book, and I couldn't put the thing down. It's like, okay, can I use that in a quote? He said, yeah, you can. But I said, I'm forcing everybody in my company to read your book. He said, but only on one condition. You got to change the title. He said, Chicken Soup for the Soul. The whole book's about brain glue. You have to call it brain glue. You're teaching us right brain selling, which is emotional selling, and you have a left brain title, a technical title. And that's the mistake we fall into. Now, when we publish a book on Amazon, after you get like 50 or 100 reviews, you fall into Amazon's algorithm and it helps you sell books. So I had a lot of reviews, people loving the book. And I said, do I have to change it? He said, yes, you have to change it. Follow your own rule. You're teaching us how to do right brain selling. You need to change the title to Brain Glue. It's great because it's teaching us how to do this. You can't read the book without actually starting to apply it to your own, stuff that you do. Like it gives you amazing ideas, but you got to change the title. So Jack Canfield is somebody I have to thank. It made sense, but it was like, oh, but I did so much work with the first one. Too bad, dump it, Yep. And he's right. He was right. Yeah. And the third person I have to say is my wife. Mm-hmm. I've gone through, I helped my wife stuck with me through thick and thin, and it was really great. And I came from a crazy family and she was not crazy. So that was a first revelation for me. It's like, wow, you don't have to beat each other up at the kitchen table. It's like, wow. and she was no, and she was really great. But she's also stuck by me every step of the way. And then she's also fun because I get to bounce ideas off her. Although I do learn this, that's why brain glue is so important. Sometimes I'll tell her something. I don't know if you guys out there get this with spouses or girlfriends. I would tell her something and she would go, oh, okay, okay. I said, you weren't even listening. She said, yeah, I was. Said, well, what did I say? Okay. It looks like she has the body language if she's listening, but she's got other stuff on her mind. But that helps me understand that a lot of us are like that. Somebody will ask us something or say something to us, and we nod our head like we're listening, but half of our brain is thinking, did I forget to turn off the oven? Did I forget to lock my car? Are we losing this client or all that stuff? And then when you're talking to them, all that other stuff is going on in their brain while they're talking to us. And that's why brain glue is so important, is because you need to wake up the brain and trigger it. So they go, oh, what? Oh, okay. Fire extinguisher. Yeah. Okay. Hey, and just stick in the brain.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful stuff. And I really appreciate some of the stuff that you've shared. And you have covered so much in such a short period of time. But I know anybody, listening to this you've got their minds going,
Oh, so.
and they're probably thinking like, dang, I want to go get my hands on a copy of this book and stuff. And so for anybody, listening to this, James, going, dang, Kev, I really like James. I like the way he shows up. I like what he's talking about. How can they get more info? Any resources you have? How can they find out more about your book? How can they do that?
Well, very easy. And let me start with this.
Okay.
I believe every one of you out there has a product or service that's a blockbuster that you're sitting on and you don't realize it. And if you can, for most of us, if we can slightly tweak how we describe our product, I say, brain glue tools. Brain glue lights the fire of desire in your buyer. Okay. I was actually playing with ChatGPT and I said, can you give me some cool phrases for this? I gave him, the information on my book, the description, and it started coming up with stupid ones, but it did have a good one. It was, why brain glue? Because plain glue doesn't stick to the brain. And I thought, that's a great one. It's okay. But you've got, most of us are sitting on something that's really fabulous. I was sitting on someone's right brain marketing strategy. It was great, but I needed to change it to brain glue. And so for most of you and us, all of us together, we're sitting on something that could be a blockbuster and we don't even realize it just by changing it. So if you go to braingluebook.com, it'll take you to Amazon. Now, I won't give you a sales page and all that stuff. Just go to braingluebook.com, and on Amazon, it'll take you right to Amazon. And Amazon lets you look at free parts of the book. We also have an audiobook. For those of you that love audiobooks, we have this fabulous narrator. He's hilarious. And you can actually listen to a sample of the audiobook also. In fact, the audiobook has a sample of a city in Canada that came up with something that's so outrageous, they actually had to apologize 3 years later after they tripled their tourism. Okay, but they apologize. Sorry, we didn't mean to offend everybody. Ha ha ha. As all these people have T-shirts and bumper stickers with this slogan. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but it's worth listening to the sample on the podcast on the Amazon page. But yeah, braingluebook.com will get you right to the Amazon page. You can just see some of the reviews and what people have said about it as well.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, James, I really want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation and just share from your heart. Is there any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, two things.
Okay.
One is be passionate, connect to your passion.
Yeah.
How can you can't bore people into buying your product or service. And so if you're passionate about it, then that will resonate with your prospects. And the other one is, start a brain glue exercise. And the easiest one to do, I want to give you one more example, but an easier one to do is come up with an analogy or metaphor. You do it this way. The product or idea you have, okay, is just like what? But think outside the box. Pick the craziest idea possible. And I'm going to give you an example, okay?
Okay.
So this guy, Paul Tran, created an electric razor to shave man's private areas, okay? And he didn't want to offend people, but he wanted to make it obvious what the product is. So he's thinking and thinking and thinking. He came up with a metaphor. Are you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
He even named the product this. He calls this product the lawnmower,
Nice.
A lawnmower, shave a man's private areas. He even called his anyway his company Manscaped, which I thought was hilarious. But
Nice.
he's laughing his way all the way to the bank, as
Yeah.
his customers are too, because somebody will buy and say, "Guess what I just bought? The lawnmower." The lawnmower,
Yeah.
yeah, and they just describe it to people. But so it's just like, and be as crazy as possible. And once you come up with a crazy way to end that sentence, but that's relevant, share it with friends and family, coworkers, whatever else, and watch their reaction. I mean, whoever would have thought, I'm sure he laughed like crazy when he said, "How could you call it the lawnmower?" But crossing over and saying, "You know what? I think I'm going to name the product the lawnmower." I mean, like, I can hear people going, "No, don't do that."
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do, no, sorry, I'm going to do that all the way to the bank is the way
Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in that, it's just like, and then come up with crazy ideas and share it. And I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. And also it'll start to resonate with you.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, yeah, something like that just gets guys talking, and even what
And
you
girls.
said, yeah, and you said the company name was Manscapes. Is
Manscaped.
I mean, what a great play on words, because I mean, you think landscapes, landscaping, what have you, and manscaping. I mean, that's great. That's great. And you're right. It sticks with you. It definitely sticks with you.
Yep.
Well, James, once again, thanks so much for taking the time to share today, and just really appreciate it. Really appreciate you. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me. This was lots of fun.
Absolutely.